Pretty sure Thomas Jefferson tried his best to idiot-proof the Constitution to keep it from federal government tyrannical rule overtaking the states' rights and the local government's rights and powers and leverage and hostile but non-hostile takeover, which is what they're doing through Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood, P3, which probably coincides with P3, the UN security. So we've got the little fish, the Italian mafia, it seems. They came in 1965 with the War on Poverty through the HUD program that was started 9/9/1965. And the War on Poverty, LBJ called Sergeant Shriver 2 months after Kennedy's assassination and said, I need you to lead this up. And he said, I just started Peace Corps and I'm kind of out of the country. I'll get back to you in 18 months and we'll get this going. It wasn't in the Federal Register, so it's not the law. It's just, it was payment for the assassination of Kennedy, basically, my opinion, not an attorney. 1720 was the stock market, so that's the little fish. The bigger fish would be the federal branches of government. So there's separation of powers, judicial, executive, and legislative. So the legislative is Congress and the US House of Representatives, and they represent the people, write the laws, they carry the purse. Judicial, make sure the laws are constitutional, and more than that. And the executive branch is the administration, administers the law. So there's a clear and separation of the branches and their powers to check and balance each other to make sure that none of them have all three of them, which the executive branch has now, and certainly did as of 2004. And it seems like it coincided with the city of San Diego. SEC sent Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood, and Rod Solomon had just finished his tenure at HUD, writing the Consolidated Appropriations Acts through the Public and Indian Housing. So they're writing the law when they're not supposed to be. So 2004, they came to city of San Diego. Scott Peters was president. Brian Meinsheisen was also part of city council for the city of San Diego. Tony Akins, Donna Fry. Those are the 4 of the 8 that were all the way through from 2000 to 2007 when they recruited Richard Gentry, who'd worked at HUD, his first job, 1972. Fresh out of Wakefield College. He was a humanitate and a demon deacon. So, the Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood did their first disclosure with the city of San Diego over the misuse of the pension fund on the stock market. So there it is. All the projects coming out of HUD, Public and Indian Housing, are scams on the stock market, running on the stock market. It's the Trojan horse. 1720 was England's first stock market crash and Ponzi scheme, so they learned a new way to cripple a society. By 1790, we had the New York Stock Exchange, out of necessity because of the compromise from 1790. So the Constitution, Jefferson was warning about the federal government, so they were to have few and enumerated powers, and their seat of government was to not exceed 10 square miles. And in 1801, they decided, 1790, they decided the seat of the government would be Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia, outside of the United States. That's it, nowhere else. But now we have it, the whole city of San Francisco and county is its own seat of government. There's like I guess a shadow, I don't even know what they call it, but the seat of government, the county seat of government, they're everywhere. So who's voting for them? Who's deciding that they get to what? What are they doing? That's the federal government superseding the state rights and powers. It's unconstitutional, and I think it has something to do with OpenGov kind of lists 2 million federal civilians. So it's not the military, but it's the federal civilians that work for the military. All those people are on payroll for open government. Selling America out. Build America, buy America, bad, because we're sheep. And those are the interagencies that Trump reversed, and that's great, but what about the interagency holdings and all those monies? Because that's where it is. Like, he gave back the agencies, but what about the money? He gave back all the education, but what about the school loans? Of the $50,000 loans that they're giving to students, and then $20,000 is all they use, they still have to pay back $50,000. So they just take the 30,000 and then make them pay 150% on the loan, which is so unlawful. It's, yeah, I wrote it down somewhere, but yeah, it's unbelievable. So that needs to that's a class action lawsuit right there, like on a commercial, on everybody who's been scammed through this. It's not okay. They're writing their own policy. It's misleading. Anyway, so 2005, well, also in 2004, HUD and DOJ got together as joint powers to enforce Civil Rights and Fair Housing Act. And it's a huge problem, especially here in San Diego, because I was unlawfully unhoused, and I called the Department of Fair Employment and Housing in October 2021, and I was told, we have all the rights, we have all the information, and we had the enforcement power, but they revoked the enforcement power. Guess who did that? DOJ. And guess what happened after that? Then they got rid of the Department of Fair Employment and Housing altogether and turned it into the Civil Rights Agency, so that no one, or very few, would have any civil rights or fair housing unless you're a property owner. So completely discrimination. It's slavery, basically. They're taking all of our rights and our access, any recourse to a violation of our rights. And that's against the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. You cannot use the rights, powers, and protections that this document that protects America and its people, to use it to take other people's rights, freedoms, and protections that are equal and same to yours. So, I don't know. And also the Constitution, for the term limits, it stated clearly those are the term limits. It's a one-time deal. They never intended for political elitism. No. It's of the people, by the people, for the people. It's a one-time shot. It's not a have to, it's a get to, and you're representing your people of your state, and then on a national level in Congress. 2-year limits for use of House of Representatives. Scott Peters been in for 14 years. Nice perks. And they're also doing inside trading. And that's clearly stated in the Federal Register, 1936. They're talking about it openly. 1936 Federal Register. That's the law. That's the daily publication of the federal law. They have the SEC starting at the very beginnings, and it's all judicial. And the Bank of England, you can't live without us. You need our money. You need us. And yeah, and we stood strong against that. And they're always seeking world domination through their AKAs. Anyway, 2004 in City of San Diego, they also paid the city manager to work at the city council's pleasure, at their pleasure. That was Scott Peters. And Elizabeth Morris was the president and CEO of San Diego Housing Commission, and that's important because 2 days after they did the SAC program in 2007, she turned her resignation into Scott Peters, who was also the board of directors for the San Diego Housing Commission, along with the president of the Housing Authority, City Council. So he was both the Housing Commission and the Housing Authority, which, yeah, that's not how they're doing it now. In 65, City Council did take on the Housing Authority position because it was demanded, I'm sure. And the larger the city, the more funding, the bigger the target. And so Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood, Rod Solomon. Rod Solomon went to Harvard Law, Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that's Massachusetts. That's the seat of the government, Cambridge, but the unofficial federal. But yeah. And Harvard Law is right there, and they're doing bad law. Anti-American loyalists, I have no doubt. Because of Rod Solomon, I think it's Sean Tierney or Brian Garzioni, who's writing the SEC laws. They're all Hawkins boys. So that's Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood. 2005, they went to Washington, D.C. They did their second disclosure. It's in the state of Hawaii, website, FY 2122, Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood proposal, page C27 or 46, and they did their second disclosure, which there's no client-attorney privilege because it's federal funding, which makes it's public money, public information. So there's no hiding behind that. It's BS what they're doing. They know it. Everything, they take everything, turn it upside down, and make it ugly, stealing the money. Yeah, so we're paying out to the mafia. the federal government and the UN, the British UN, ever seeking world domination again and again. So Washington, D.C., they drafted the disclosure, turned it into an independent governance, did 2 sets of books, closed several quick deals with separate executive directors. So they sold America out. They created a second government with the securities, which is the debt. And also in 2005, the Census Bureau changed the coding, and it went to no further debt would be incurred through the federal government. All debt would be incurred by the states and local governments. And that's from the 1790 Compromise. So Washington, D.C. was to be in Washington, D.C. In the second one, Alexander Hamilton wanted all of the states' debts from the American Revolutionary War. So the federal government took all the state debts, so states have no debts, and turned them into war bonds for the rich to purchase so that they could become more interested in the government, federal government, and earn money. So that didn't change until 2005. And they weren't open about it. It wasn't in the Federal Register. They even changed the paperwork on my phone. I'm like, really? Wow. To look like they'd been doing disclosures before that with Washington, D.C. So everything after that they've done should be null and void. Unbelievable. Because that's what they've been selling bonds. They're the attorneys for HUD. And that's through the SAC program from 9/9/2007, City of San Diego, first in the nation, and Special Application Center. For the DOJ, it's the Special Acquisition Center. It's out of Chicago, which is also where Neffy is at. Gentry worked there for 10 years as a syndicator, pushing the low-income and housing tax credit, and a scam through HUD, Public and Indian Housing, and run through the state treasurer of California. So most of the states have one of those for the low-income housing and tax credit. Complete scam through the stock market. The stock market is just a laundromat at this point, in my opinion. It's unbelievable. And the Salomon brothers from 1987, they're the big ones who learned how to leverage in hostile takeover on the stock market. Big, huge thing. And they were also using individuals to purchase securities above the amount that were allowed. So they've got scams coming out of their butt. They were selling products off from this. They were making up products to sell on the stock market. And again, Trojan horse from England. And in 2000, NASDAQ became publicly traded. And now they're headquartered in England, the Canadian portion, and there are 100 of them, 100 firms of Salomon brothers all over the world, and there was Citigroup, and it's a pretty long list and well-known financiers. So these financiers they're just writing policies for the rich. And yeah, that's not acceptable, it's not okay. It's unclean hands in civil law for California, which precludes them from any financial gains due to their bad acts. It's assumed that all business deals will be fair and honest, and if they're not, they're null and void, and they know that. So they're playing us. It's a grift. It's a game to them. They're just having fun, laughing in our faces with a really bad English humor. They're not even funny. It's not even ironic, sardonic. It's just lame, but it's blatant and it's in our face. Yeah, I don't even know what else to say. We have to take it back, bill it back. Consolidated Appropriations Act, they're all unlawful. One of them are legal because the Constitution says back to the framework, back to what Jefferson was trying to drive home, stated clearly. So it's not the first time. I'm pretty sure the federal government has tried to overthrow America before, so don't feel bad for those people because they are making a ton of money, and they intentionally denied the Tenant Protection Act for the state of California. It's been 5 years. It's from 1/1/2020 to 1/1/2030. So they took the people's rights to a 10% rent cap for the whole state of California. I don't think it's been convicted because I was with legal aid at that time, and they told me they wouldn't sign me unless I agreed CC 827 was the law, the rental law, which is 6 months, 90 days rather than 60 days for rents above 10%, and the rent cap was 10% from Governor Newsom, Tenant Protection Act, and they denied it. San Diego Housing Commission paid $5 million to legal aid to prevent evictions and to prevent the conviction of Tenant Protection Act. So they just ignored it in the courthouse. It was on the free eviction clinic paperwork, but it was not mentioned at all. When I went to court, it was with extreme prejudice. It was ignored. My answer to the unlawful retainer, sorry, was not even gotten to. I had 2 witnesses, and I was only allowed 1. The legal aid letter that said 2 unlawful rent increases was considered client-attorney privilege, and Dale Vinzant was the property owner's lawyer. And he took ownership, Alfred Alexander Joshua, not the doctor. There are 2. They're both from New York. They both came over with the live well off of San Diego. Oh, and the UN. And yeah, Alfred Alexander Joshua took ownership on 3/20/2020. So Trump declared state of emergency on 3/13/2020, Friday the 13th. 3/20, a week later, ownership, lease went from 40 pages to 4. Week after that, 3/27, California state of emergency. So they didn't even have to deal with us. He couldn't even talk to, he was home free for a year and a half. Huh. All a scam of them just, yeah. Unbelievable. So this all needs to be rectified. Every single person that has a subsidized housing is being used as an accessory to the crimes of overallocation and reallocation of funds. They're moving to work is a 20-year contract. That's also a scam through HUD, Public and Indian Housing. 20-year contract with the feds, complete compliance, and Hopkins, Delafield, and Woods is their contractor, so they can come in and charge you $500 million, and you have nothing but to say yes. Yes, sir. You have no recourse, and that's on a state level. So that's completely unacceptable. And so the UN, 1945, FDR came back and he's like, we didn't make any deals, we joined the UN. Then in 46, the WF, UNA, UK, World Federation, United Nations Association of the Great Britain, the Kingdom of Great Britain, Oversight joined. Then World Bank joined in 47, and then 1948 was the second Genocide Convention for the United Nations. And it was 50 states signed a charter, 5 veto, 10 rotating. And it should have been disbanded in 1987 when they became a war machine, and it eventually became 12 subsidiaries, 15 projects, 3 partners, and so it should have been disbanded then. 87, hostile taker, leverage data, UN, and demanding basically, and then 2017 certainly, because they did corporate genocide. It's not on the books. Genocide. They issued a mandate, the plan 2017, that the world population was to be 8.4 to 8.6 by 2030. So that's the D-Day on that. And so that means everyone has to self-regulate their own population. So the target for America, the line is, and COVID was intentional, it was a UN mandate, basically, running through who? It's COVID-19, 2019. Yeah, no, it was intentional. It's horrible. That's genocide. They don't care. The line is anybody who receives subsidized housing or social services, you don't deserve to live if you're not self-sustainable. While they're stealing all the federal funding. It's unbelievably true, sadly, and it's unacceptable. So the UN needs to be disbanded, the World Bank defunct, and money's dispersed, so that way they have met their whatever that they think they're supposed to be doing. But it went from just these guys getting around discussing things to a war machine. And it has Hussein, niece or someone female, on the 30 human rights. And yeah, mandating genocide. That's why you see all the people out in the streets, they're testing on humans to check for the resiliency of no housing. They're intentionally not allowing the housing. They're intentionally scamming all the money. The state treasurer, Fiona Ma, she's British born. I know she seems like she's Asian, I'm sure she is, but she's from England. She has on opencorporates.com, She Rises Resort Limited, which is a trust fund, because that's what HUD pays through, is a trust fund. Alfred Alexander Joshua's is Joshua Alfred A. Revocable 11/17/17. I moved in at 10/17/2017, but it was a different owner, different, yeah. So, but I'm probably, it was all connected. And his attorney of record is Carl A. Larson. Carl A. Larson with Berkowitz and Larson. So he was setting it all up and then just moving the people in. And that was Aaron and Alex Salazar was also with that, and Angela Pham Xavier, Dr. Angela Pham Xavier, who was an esthetician in New York and became an MDER, murderer. So if you're on Medi-Cal, we're not getting the same medical treatment that we were. And also HUD signed, Rod Solomon, Hawken, Delafield, and Wood also signed with San Diego Housing Commission. HCR 12037 is the contract. And they, Orange County Fire became a financier. So they're basically selling them out. They're loaning out the money and going in debt. It's really ugly. It's hard to explain. A lot of it I'm still learning. But that's what's going on, and we need to take it back. So I don't think it's the military. I think it's the people working for the military, the 2 million on open government. But the DOJ is acting judicially within the executive branch, and that's completely unacceptable because now they have the gavels and the guns. They have the judges under duress. It's business as usual until they're told otherwise when it comes to people like me who are targeted for their federal funding number. And then everyone that has been evicted basically from 1/1/2020 to 1/1/2030 in the state of California was unlawful due to the non-adherence to the state law. And they're going to say, oh, federal takes precedence. No, it doesn't, because the federal government has few and enumerated powers, and it was commerce originally, and the states had everything else. They had complete control over their state, and that was that. And Jefferson's like, be careful. And then they started taking more and more. They used grants, and the grants are now loans to get their bidding done. And so now they're dealing in housing when they shouldn't be. The federal government should not be stepping foot. They got some military. The land has to be ceded, means given by the state permission to use the land for the federal government for forts, arsenals, military stuff as needed, and some dams and waterway stuff. Their Bureau of Land Management is management because Falun Gong in New York uses mysticism, new spiritual thing, using mind tampering stuff that is not okay. Propaganda is not okay. Suggestive behavioral modification is not okay. Hypnosis is not okay. When you're messing with people's minds, it's not okay. Subliminal messaging on the television is not okay. Pretty sure all that stuff was illegalized and it got smoking cessation brought back hypnosis or something like that. But no doubt the DOJ is tampering, and something to do with Falun Gong because they got 423 acres in New York, on Dragon Mountain, or 100 people with armed guard, and then they're trying to make it look like it's something it's not. And they were kicked out of China, so they're doing, not okay stuff. I'm not an attorney. That's my opinion. But who gets 423 acres in New York? Nobody. What else? Tons and tons. Tons of evidence. All my stuff's factually based, to the best of my knowledge. Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood, no. Brian Garzioni, he's like 25 years old, writing the legislation for SEC. So stock market should be closed. There's got to be a better way for investment because, Anyway, have a great day. And America's about to be 250. Times have changed, and we often rewound the clock. For the Constitution we fought, Washington DC's been sold and bought. 2005. If today any law they should try to lay, instead of in the Federal Register, every law be laid on them. In olden days, a lie be shocking, resolved by the truth alone. Now heaven knows
Good lawyers too, who once knew better words, now only play semantics and with loopholes. Anything goes. If loose laws you like and low bars you like, by judges you like, under duress you like, nobody will oppose. When Machiavellian Darwinians use corporate genocide to nibble at your toes, anything goes. When oligarchy monopolies rule over republican democracies, it shows. Anything goes. The world's gone mad today, and good's bad today, and black's white today, and day's night today, and that gent today you gave a cent today once owned several chateaus. When independents take our independence and open cover leaves us in the throes, anything goes. When British UN seeking world domination again in Solomon's, changing proverbs to prose, anything goes. Just think of those shocks you got, and those knocks you got, and those blues you got from those news you got, and those pains you got, if any brains you got from those little radios. Cell phones. Cole Porter, 1937 rendition, Zera Dunford, Astrailia Dunford. Let's make it to our 250 and keep the books open for another 250 years, because they won't stop. And it's the UN, and it's the UK, and then it's British, yeah, all their AKAs, it's still England. But, you know, who knows? We've been, ever since 45, America's been deploying all the conflict because of the UN security mandated from the British, basically, yeah. And Commonwealth. So all the Commonwealth states are in question. And I was thinking Rhode Island was the one because they had state charters and then they had royal charters. So the business would come over and they would self-rule. And Rhode Island was the best at it. They almost forgot that they weren't a royal charter because they were so good at self-governing. And that's what they're trying to pull with their businesses. They don't have to follow the law. They could just follow their articles of incorporation and self-rule. So we need to separate not just church and state, but corporate and state. So in Rhode Island, they're not considered a commonwealth, but they use state and commonwealth interchangeably. Just like, yeah, we're good, but we're not. We're states. We're not a commonwealth, but since we'll just appease you. So they're very underhanded. It's not fair and honest dealings. Everything's null and void, and they're trying to smudge. Make us look bad in the history books, and I do not appreciate it. I'm 1/4 English, so if they want to play it that way, my lineage goes back 300 years past Jesus. I've got a ton of crests, so parlay, back it off, and you have no jurisdiction here. Yay. We'll just, never mind. Bye.